Hey guys, it's Mathil here once again, and today I've got a bit of a not good attempt at making a build, and that is because of the item itself, I do believe, anyway. So we're trying to use Gluttonous Tide, the bow that you get repeatedly after killing Eater of Worlds. It's the most common drop there, and it's a pretty dead item as far as we can tell, like 1 alch, on trade, and not really worth building into. I thought I'd go ahead and give it a shot regardless because it's been out for a couple of leagues now, and I wanted to make sure that there's nothing in there that I'm not really seeing, and it's not some kind of hidden budget option for a real nice strong bow build. And wanted to give it some sort of attempt. A new Lightning Arrow MTX came out, and I thought this was kind of a good opportunity to test that out and also test a certain form of Lightning Arrow that could scale off of lots of arrows, since that's what the bow does, and that is more of a sort of barrage single target playstyle. It's not very good in the end. So the build in the end, like as you can see, ends up being kind of just a bow build, like they all will look, it's a bow build, and it became pretty good for clear. Like I got from level 1 to 93 in 14 hours or some shit, and that's with crafting and AFKing a lot, that sort of stuff. So it was really fast on mapping, possibly the fastest mapper I've had this league, but it falls short with a pretty traditional bow problem, and that is single target, which you usually fix by having the right gear, the right skill, the right damage, through usually expenses. So there wasn't much I could do here to really change that in the end, I don't think. So let me start by just saying Gluttonous Tide. It's a bow that has a bit of phys damage, very basic amount of physical damage, and then gives you some frenzies on crit. And then the ability to fire off extra projectiles, extra arrows, based off of your maximum amount of frenzies. So if you have 4 frenzies, and then you hit that 4th frenzy, once you get to that 4th stack, you'll instead consume your frenzies, and your next bow attack will have 4 additional arrows. So the idea was for me to try and stack some frenzies and a lot of frenzy generation, so tried to get frenzy on hit in various places and some precursor rings to get from low amount of frenzies to instant max stacks just randomly, and then try and repeatedly just fire off a lot of these projectiles. And it did work, and end up being, like I said, just kind of a mapping character, which is pretty good, which is just Lightning Arrow doing its thing. I ended up using some shrines, and also my first, in the past few years even, use of inspired learning, but wanted to try inspired learning specifically because Arch Nemesis is a new thing, and it just becomes really juiced gameplay. Like as you can see, you put some shrines on the map, you don't even have to do that, and with inspired learning and just Lightning Arrow bow build, you just run around and fucking right click screens all day long, and it becomes exactly what it is, Lightning Arrow, which is just one of the premier clear skills in the game. Problem is, the single target was pretty shit. I think in the end, maybe a couple of million DPS. That's if you're capable of standing still and face tanking, and the barrage setup. So hopefully we're firing off 10 arrows almost every single attack. It still just felt kind of crap. The bow itself is kind of shit. So the main issue, I think, is that this bow specifically was kind of dead on arrival. It didn't have quite good enough numbers, but on top of that, it came out at the same time as they buffed all rare bows. So it really made no fucking sense, the launch of this thing, because it comes out with 400 DPS or some shit, and at the exact same time they buff all rares to the point where you can have 1200 LE DPS bows pretty easily, pretty comfortably, pretty realistically, and then stacking flat LE on top of that is supremely easy as a bow build as well. So this has a fifth of the scaling or some shit of the Stormrain character I did, which is just an LE bow and then a superior skill for single target. And I'm really not sure what the deal with that is, why release such a undercooked item at the same time as buffing a bunch of other items, but maybe there's something I'm missing, and maybe there's an actual good use of this bow out there. I've yet to hear it. The only thing I've ever heard of is similar examples to what happened here. Yeah, you can kind of clear with it, but you could do that with any bow. So anyway, this is a bit of a lightning arrow build to show you how I tempted this character, and that'll be it. So here is the character, level 93 Deadeye, more arrows than DPS, and I was pretty confident this wasn't going to go anywhere with damage or overall build, so it was easy to name a character with some low DPS. So the bow we're building around is Gluttonous Tide. So like I said, just a basic fizz roll, bit of attack speed on it. Lose all frenzy charges on reaching max frenzy charges to make the next bow attack you perform fire that many arrows. If you have a minimum frenzy, for example, then you'll just always have the buff for global crit multi while you have frenzy charge, but you won't be able to consume that frenzy for the maximum frenzy to arrow conversion thing. So you'd be minus an arrow by doing that. And otherwise, just a bunch of frenzy charge for a, chance for each enemy you hit with critical strike. So when we're mapping, we do go straight up to maximum frenzies pretty routinely, pretty often. And thanks to precursor rings, 15% chance that you would gain frenzy charges, you instead gain up to maximum number of charges. So every single time we are trying to gain frenzies, there's a 30% chance to go straight to the max and then unleash a max frenzy arrow attack on the next attack. So I've got frenzy on hit there. I've got some frenzy on hit on the chest. I've got some frenzy on hit on the ascendancy that I chose to steal from Raider, Where the Poacher. So 20% chance when you hit a rare unique enemy, max frenzy, and then some frenzy on kill. And as well as that, we have the 10% chance frenzy when you hit your marked enemy. So with all of that, like I said, just about every single time we have a chance to get a frenzy, we got a 30% chance to go straight up to max, and that's kind of the idea behind sustaining arrows there. So a lot of the time, just for mapping, we're running around with Pierce support, and then Lightning Arrow using Mirage Archer, Inspiration, Trinity, and Ellie damage. And then when I go into single target, I go Barrage, and in theory, should be firing off like 10 to 12 arrows most of the time, and it hopefully does some damage, and in the end it kind of doesn't. I mean, a few million DPS is really nothing to write home about in modern PoE when you've put in this much work. So the MTX looks pretty cool by all means. Lightning Arrow definitely playable with the right setup, and very good for clearing, for mapping, so can still recommend that. But that's basically the entire concept of the character, and then otherwise just making it sort of a fizz bow to conversion style build, and throwing some currency around if I need to. Became capped on suppress, became ailment immune, got some power charge on crit here, some frenzy, just a chest that we tried making, quiver that tried making, just does a bunch of damage. There's really not much to look at or mention that's interesting or different here. It's just a basic bow build, I think, that's physical, does some conversion, and then does some Ellie. So a bunch of physical, starts out, goes into lightning, goes into cold. We've got the Deadeye ascendancies for far shot and 2 additional proj, and then gathering winds for tailwind, and then focal point for even better Sniper's Mark, because Sniper's Mark is what makes all of these bow and proj skills like worth playing. Feels good. We do take the 2 additional proj because to begin with, I've got just 1 proj, right? And if you don't have those 2 additional proj, we're firing off 1 proj anytime we're not at max frenzies, so at least 3 proj is just what feels good like this. So other than that, the bow build does what? Let's have a look. We got a Forbidden Flesh over here, Forbidden Flesh over here, Forbidden Flame, sorry. Took a crit fizz extra for Hatred and Wrath. Watcher's Eye, which is a few exalts. Got our Inspired Learning over here. Pretty convenient place to place it, since we do use all of that shit comfortably. You could also put it up here and then do some other shit. But that's about it. I mean, it's just a very basic bow build. It's a very similar setup to the Stormmarine character I played, except it's Fizz to Ellie scaling, and it's using a shit bow, and it's using some different gear. What else? In theory, I could have had Grace up full time and then used the Divine Blessing for one of these, but I really didn't give a shit and didn't bother, so I just ran around defenseless for the most part, trying to obliterate screens. Never even camped res because it just would have cost a little bit of crit multi on this duel, and I couldn't be fucked doing that because we were just a mapping character. What else? What else? What else? Had a totem set up here with pure barrage lightning arrow. I don't think it really did much in the end because the totem setup is never going to have the benefit of the frenzies into the arrows. So, you know, I tried and it did a little bit of extra stuff, but I don't think it really mattered. And then otherwise, mark on hit, sniper's mark, Hydrasphere just for the occasional additional strike and also the exposure. Tornado, didn't really feel like it was doing much in this build, to be honest. And honestly, I don't know. That's it. Like, by all means, you can make a lightning arrow build. Just early damage scaling, nice early bow, and it'll shit on maps. And you can do it with Wind Ripper even and go sort of quantity based and just farm Crimson Temples with Inspired Learning and Shrines. But I tried to make use of this bow and it's just shit. I knew it was going to be shit. And I was hoping for something, you know, magic to happen. It didn't really. Maybe there's a better use out there. Intuitively, if it wasn't for the Lightning Arrow MTX, which is just what I wanted to build into, intuitively, I would have thought this should scale best with Tornado Shot. Never even tried it. I don't think it's really got the legs just because of the base that I'm working off of. But maybe Tornado Shot's going to be better. Blast Rain, I hear, has potential as well. Yeah, I don't know. Still fun, still leveled real quick and still a bow build, but not really too worth exploring any further than that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry for the disappointing build. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.